Your bonus is cut. Maybe family comes first too often. You cut my bonus because I'm a father?
Good. Then I'll offer him double.
Sign the revised acknowledgement, Marcus. Payroll closes at 5. Thomas Klein pushed a single sheet across the walnut conference table without touching the folder Marcus Reed had brought with him. Marcus, a 39-year-old black systems director and single father, looked at the number twice. His annual performance bonus had been cut from $31,500 to $10,500. The signed compensation plan in his folder tied the full amount to 3 targets. He had cleared all 3. Klein had not checked them before asking him to accept the reduction. Rain streaked the windows 30 floors above downtown Chicago, turning the river below into a strip of hammered gray metal. Marcus kept one hand on the folder and the other around a paper cup of coffee gone cold. Across from him, Klein sat with his jacket off and his sleeves folded once, the picture of a CEO squeezing an unpleasant conversation between more important meetings. Dana Cho, Halden Dynamics compensation director, occupied the chair nearest the door. She had the original incentive sheet open on her tablet. "I'm trying to understand what changed," Marcus said. "The West Bridge conversion went live November 3rd. Downtime dropped 21%. The client signed acceptance 6 days later. I know what your team delivered. My plan says payment follows delivery." Klein finally glanced at the folder, though not long enough to read anything inside it. The plan also gives senior leadership discretion. Dana looked up. Marcus noticed because she had spent most of the meeting staring at her tablet. "The discretionary language applies to the company modifier," she said. "His project component is listed separately." Klein's jaw shifted. "Thank you, Dana. I understand our own plan." She lowered her eyes again. Marcus opened the folder anyway. The first page carried Klein's signature from the previous February. Beneath it sat the 3 metrics, each highlighted by finance after year-end close. Marcus had printed the document that morning because the portal had shown the reduced amount with no explanation. He placed it between them. Klein left it untouched. "That project succeeded because 37 people worked on it," he said. "You're being compensated well already. So were the other directors." The room changed by half a degree. Klein leaned back. "Careful." Marcus hated that word. His 8-year-old daughter Zoe used it when carrying orange juice across their kitchen. At work, careful meant something else. It meant the conversation had reached the point where accuracy could be recast as attitude. He looked toward Dana. Were other director bonuses reduced? Dana's thumb stopped above her screen. Klein answered for her. Other directors had different performance profiles. Marcus knew 2 of them. Dan Bell had missed his margin target after a supplier overrun. Andrea Cole had postponed a product release into January. Both had congratulated Marcus at the holiday dinner after learning he had hit every number on his plan. "What part of my profile changed the calculation?" Klein exhaled through his nose. "Marcus, you are excellent technically. Nobody disputes that. But at your level, contribution is broader than numbers. Presence matters. Availability matters. Clients need to feel they have access to leadership." Marcus understood then. In September, Zoe's school had called after she fainted during gym class. Marcus had left a supplier dinner early and spent the night beside her in the emergency department. In October, he had worked from home twice for follow-up appointments. His calendar showed both absences as approved. His project had still finished 12 days ahead of schedule. "You're reducing an earned bonus because I took approved family leave?" "I didn't say that. You said availability. I said leadership." Dana looked at Klein now, openly. Klein reached for the paper and tapped the signature line with his index finger. "I'm saying I need senior people who make the organization their first call when pressure hits. You've got responsibilities outside this building. I respect that. But I can't pretend it has no effect." Marcus felt his phone vibrate inside his coat. Probably Zoe. She had a science fair that evening and had made him promise, twice, that he would not be late. He did not reach for it. Instead, he slid the revised acknowledgement back across the table unsigned. "I won't certify a calculation I believe contradicts the plan." For the first time, Klein's expression lost its practiced patience. "Then I'll document that you refuse to acknowledge your final compensation decision." Dana spoke before Marcus could answer. "Thomas, an acknowledgement isn't required for payroll processing." Klein turned toward her. "It is now." He opened his laptop, typed for several seconds, then clicked once. Marcus's phone vibrated again. This time, an email preview appeared on the lock screen. An annual incentive. Finalized. $10,500. Klein closed the laptop. There, he said. Now it's official. Marcus did not answer Klein. He gathered the unsigned acknowledgement, slid into the folder, and stood. Dana stayed seated. Klein had already turned back to his laptop. Marcus, he said, you think carefully before turning this into something larger than it needs to be. Marcus paused at the door. Yep. I thought I was asking to be paid according to the agreement. Klein's fingers stopped over the keyboard. That attitude is exactly what I'm talking about. Marcus left before he gave the sentence more oxygen. The corridor outside executive conference rooms felt colder than the room itself. Frosted glass ran along one wall. Framed photographs of Halden projects covered the other. Data centers, hospital networks, municipal control rooms, teams in hard hats smiling beside equipment. Marcus' phone buzzed again. ZOE. Dad, are you coming? Miss Patel says parents can come at 5:30. Marcus checked the time. 4:41. He typed back. Didn't miss it. Save me a spot. 3 dots appeared immediately. I already did. That helped. Not enough, but some. Behind him, the conference room door opened. Dana Cho stepped out, carrying her tablet against her chest. Marcus. He turned. Dana glanced toward Klein's closed door, then toward the reception desk 20 feet away. She lowered her voice. I shouldn't have let that meeting end like that. You didn't make the decision. I processed it. That was different, and both of them knew it. Marcus waited. Dana took a breath. Your bonus wasn't calculated through the normal year-end batch. His grip tightened on the folder. What does that mean? Director incentives were locked last Thursday. Yours was changed this morning through an executive override. By Thomas, I can see the authorization code. I can't discuss another employee's compensation. I didn't ask you to. Her mouth pressed into a thin line. No, you didn't. Marcus had worked with Dana for 4 years. She was careful with words because compensation people survived by knowing which sentence could become an exhibit later. Was my original amount approved before today? He asked. Dana looked at him for 2 seconds. Yes, that was enough to change the shape of the afternoon. By finance? Yes. Based on the targets in my plan? Yes. Marcus opened the folder and looked at the $10,500 figure again. So someone approved $31,500 and Thomas reduced it afterward. Dana's eyes moved toward the security camera above the corridor. I said what I can say. Thank you. She started to leave, then stopped. Marcus. He waited. Download whatever documents you're entitled to access while your credentials still work. The sentence landed harder than Klein's threat. Do you think they're going to fire me? I think Thomas hates losing control of a story. Dana walked away before Marcus could ask anything else. He stood there with the folder under his arm and his daughter's science fair waiting across town. For a few seconds, he considered going back. Not to argue. To ask Klein whether the bonus reduction was the beginning of something else. Then Marcus pictured the signature line Klein had tried to put beneath his hand. No. If Klein wanted another conversation, he could create a record for it. Marcus headed toward the elevators. Halden Dynamics occupied floors 28 through 31 of the Croswell Tower. The 27th belonged to Atlas Grid, the infrastructure technology firm Klein complained about whenever they won a public contract Halden wanted. Marcus pressed the down button. Nothing happened. A maintenance light blinked above the doors. Still broken? The voice came from behind him. Marcus turned. Elena Ruiz stood 10 feet away, slipping a phone into the pocket of a camel coat. At 47, Atlas Grid's CEO had the relaxed posture of someone who knew people mistook informality for softness until negotiations started. Marcus had met her 8 months earlier at the Midwest Infrastructure Forum after he gave a 20-minute presentation on recovering failed municipal software deployments. 2 weeks later, an Atlas recruiter had called him. Marcus had declined. Klein had just promised him a promotion to vice president after the Westbridge project. Ms. Ruiz. Elena. Right, Elena. She glanced at the dead elevator indicator. You look like somebody just explained corporate gratitude to you. Marcus almost laughed. Almost. Long afternoon. I heard Westbridge closed clean. It did. 11 days early, 12, that sounds more like you. A facilities worker appeared at the far end of the hall and called toward them. Elevators are cycling. Give it 2 minutes. Elena leaned against the wall. Atlas still wants you. Marcus looked at her. No performance. No dramatic smile. She meant it. I told your recruiter. No. You told my recruiter you had unfinished work here. I did. And now, Marcus glanced at the folder. Elena noticed. Bad review? Good review. Bad money? He hesitated. His mother had raised him never to discuss salary casually. His father had taught him something different before he died. Secrecy helped employers more often than workers. They cut my bonus from 31.5 to 10.5 after finance approved the full amount. Elena's expression changed. Performance issue? No. Disciplinary issue? No. Then why Marcus looked at the elevator doors. My CEO's being a single father makes me less available for leadership. Elena stopped leaning against the wall. He said that? He used cleaner words. She nodded once. Of course he did. The elevator bell chimed somewhere above them. Elena reached into her coat and pulled out a business card. I'm not asking you to quit in a hallway. Good. I'm asking you to have breakfast with me tomorrow. Marcus took the card. And if this becomes serious, it already was serious 8 months ago. She stepped closer, keeping her voice low. We budgeted a $63,000 signing bonus for the right operations leader. Double what Halden promised you. Base compensation is separate, so is equity. Marcus stared at her. Why tell me that now? Because last time I called, you thought loyalty was mutual. The elevator indicator changed from 32 to 31. Marcus looked at the card again. Elena Ree's chief executive officer Atlas grid behind him. Halden's glass doors opened. Thomas Klein stepped into the corridor. He saw Marcus, then Elena, then the card in Marcus's hand. The elevator had not arrived yet. Thomas Klein slowed as he approached them. His expression did not change much. Hey, that was almost worse. Elena, Thomas. They said each other's names with the polite flatness of people who had negotiated against one another too many times. Klein's eyes dropped to the card in Marcus's hand. I didn't realize Atlas was recruiting in our hallway. Elena slipped both hands into her coat pockets. Realize the hallway belonged to Halden. Marcus felt the familiar pressure to explain himself before anyone had asked a legitimate question. He resisted it. Klein looked at him. Do you have a minute? No, Marcus said. I have my daughter's science fair. Something flickered across Klein's face. There it was again. Ability. The elevator doors opened. Elena stepped inside first. Marcus followed. Klein stayed outside. Marcus turned. If you're discussing confidential Halden work with a competitor, we have a much different problem. Elena's head tilted. Marcus felt anger rise, fast enough to surprise him. He had made one mistake that afternoon. He had told Elena the amount of his bonus while standing inside the building. Not project details, not clients, not technology. Still, Klein now had something he could stretch. I discussed my compensation, Marcus said. Nothing belonging to Halden. I hope so. The doors began to close. Marcus put one hand between them. No. Klein stared at him. You don't get to put that accusation into the air and walk away from it. If you believe I disclosed confidential information, document exactly what you believe I disclosed. Elena said nothing. Neither did Klein. For the first time all afternoon, Marcus saw uncertainty on his CEO's face. Not fear, calculation. Klein stepped back. Go see your daughter. The doors closed. Marcus removed his hand. As the elevator descended, Elena looked at him. You always do that? Do what? Make people put vague threats into specific words. My daughter calls it being annoying. Elena smiled. She might be right. Marcus laughed then, once, despite himself. On the lobby floor, Elena walked toward the revolving doors while Marcus headed for the parking garage. She did not ask for an answer about Atlas. That made the offer feel more serious. By 5:27, Marcus was jogging across the polished floor of Lincoln Elementary with his tie loosened and his coat over one arm. Paper planets hung from the ceiling. Folding tables filled the gym. Children stood beside volcanoes, solar system models, bean plants, homemade circuits, and poster boards covered in crooked lettering. Dad! Zoe Reed waved both arms from the far side of the room. Marcus forgot Halden for several seconds. Her project occupied half a table. Plastic cups held different mixtures of soil. Small green shoots pushed from two of them. A handwritten sign read, Do plants grow better with music? You came. I said I would. You say lots of things. Marcus stopped. Zoe was smiling, but the sentence had found its target. He crouched beside her. Stuff. My winter concert. I know. And the parent lunch. I know. And you were on your laptop during movie night. That one counts? It absolutely counts. Marcus smiled, then looked at her project. Okay, tonight counts too. Zoe studied him as if deciding whether to believe the promise. Then she handed him a clipboard. Judge my science. For the next 40 minutes, Marcus listened to his daughter explain that Jazz had apparently produced a taller bean sprout than Silence, although she admitted the experiment was not scientifically enough because her bedroom radiator made 1 cup warmer. Marcus asked questions. Ill ones. He did not check his phone. When the blue ribbon went to a 6th grader with a working water filtration model, Zoe accepted her participation certificate without disappointment. "I knew his was better," she whispered. "He had gravel." Marcus nodded solemnly. "Gravel is hard to beat." They bought tacos afterward. Only when Zoe was asleep that night did Marcus open his laptop at the kitchen table. Dana's warning had followed him home. Download whatever documents you're entitled to access while your credentials still work. Marcus signed into Halden's employee portal. His performance review was still there. Overall rating, exceeds expectations. His Westbridge scorecard was there too. 3 targets, 3 green marks. He downloaded both. Then he opened the compensation section. The current statement showed $10,500. Marcus clicked History. Nothing. He tried the older compensation dashboard Halden had used before a software migration. Most employees ignored it because the interface looked 15 years old. His account still worked. A list appeared: salary adjustments, equity awards, annual incentives. Marcus opened the latest incentive entry. 2 records appeared for the same year. The first had been created 6 days earlier. Recommended Pacate. $31,500 S2B. Beneath it was a second entry created at 10:14 that morning. Executive adjustment. 21,000. Marcus leaned closer. The system did not show a reason. It did show an authorization ID. TK line XXL1. He downloaded the page as a PDF. Then he noticed another field, adjustment note attached. Marcus clicked it. Access denied. His phone rang. "Dana," he answered. "Hey." Her voice was quieter than usual. "Read?" Marcus looked at the screen. "Yes." "Good. Dana, there's an adjustment note. I can't access." Silence. Marcus sat straighter. "Do you know what it says?" "I know who wrote it." "Klein?" "No." That answer changed everything. Dana took a breath. "Marcus, tomorrow morning, don't meet Thomas alone." Marcus did not sleep much. By 7:18 the next morning, he was sitting in a coffee shop across from Halden's building with the printed compensation records inside his folder and Elena Ruiz's business card tucked behind them. He had not called Elena, not yet. Dana arrived 12 minutes later, wearing the same black coat she had worn the night before. She ordered tea, waited until the barista moved away, then sat across from Marcus. "You said someone else," wrote the adjustment note. Dana nodded. "Graham Voss." Marcus knew the name. Executive Vice President of Operations, 52, 11 years at Halden. He controlled project staffing, delivery budgets, and succession planning for most of the technical division. Marcus had worked under him indirectly for 3 years. "Why would Graham touch my bonus?" Dana wrapped both hands around the paper cup. "Because Thomas didn't invent the availability argument yesterday." Marcus said nothing. Dana looked toward the window before continuing. 3 weeks ago, Graham asked compensation to model 2 payouts for you. One at 100% of target, one at 33%. That was before final reviews. "Yes." "Did he give a reason?" "He said leadership readiness." Marcus felt something settle inside him. Not surprise anymore, structure. "When did he write the note?" "Monday." "What does it say?" Dana hesitated. "I can't give you the document. I'm not asking you to violate policy. That's why I came." She pulled her tablet from her bag but did not turn it toward him. "I can tell you what happened to a record I administer." Graham submitted a management recommendation stating that your outside caregiving responsibilities had created what he called a predictable availability constraint for executive track roles. Marcus stared at her. The coffee shop noise seemed to recede. A grinder shrieked behind the counter. Someone laughed near the door. Marcus heard only 4 words: predictable availability constraint. "My daughter." He didn't name Zoe. He didn't have to. Dana looked uncomfortable. "There's more." Marcus waited. The note references 2 incidents: the September supplier dinner and the October remote work days. Both approved. Both related to Zoe's medical appointments. "Anything about Westbridge?" Dana shook her head. "Client complaints?" "No." "Missed deadlines?" "No." "Team problems?" "No." Marcus leaned back. "So my work qualified me for the bonus and my parenting disqualified me." Dana's eyes tightened. "That's how I read it." He looked at the passing traffic outside. Last spring, Klein had called Marcus into his office after a difficult systems recovery and told him Halden needed more leaders who could stay calm when everyone else started inventing emergencies. Marcus had believed him. He had taken on Westbridge because Klein said successful delivery would place him on the vice president succession slate. 8 months later, the project had succeeded. Somewhere along the way, the promise had changed. "Why are you helping me?" Dana looked down at her tea. "My husband had a stroke 4 years ago." Marcus had not known. "I used intermittent leave for 7 months. Nobody cut my compensation because I wasn't on the executive track." She looked back at him. "Hey, I kept telling myself this was Thomas being aggressive with bonuses. Then I saw Graham's note." Marcus understood the part she did not say. Some wrong decisions were easy to ignore while they looked like numbers. Harder when they sounded like a person you loved. His phone lit up on the table. An email from Thomas Klein. "Marcus, come to my office at 8. Graham will join us. We need to discuss yesterday's interaction and your obligations concerning competitor contact." Marcus showed Dana. Her expression hardened. "They're changing the subject. They're trying. Do you have counsel?" "No." "Then don't improvise." Marcus almost smiled. "Healthy. You sound like me. That worries me." At 8:27, Marcus entered Halden's 30th floor with his folder under his arm. His badge worked. For now, Klein's assistant directed him into the smaller executive meeting room. Thomas sat at the head of the table. Graham Voss sat to his right. No HR representative. He stayed standing. "Before we start," he said, "I'd like someone from Human Resources present." Klein frowned. "This is an informal management conversation. Then it can wait." Graham leaned back. "Marcus, nobody is disciplining you." "Good. Then there shouldn't be a problem having HR here." Klein's gaze sharpened. "You've become defensive very quickly." Marcus placed the folder on the table but did not sit. "I was accused yesterday of possibly sharing confidential information with a competitor. This morning you asked me to meet with 2 executives about that interaction. I want HR present." Graham glanced at Klein. A small glance. Marcus caught it. Klein picked up the phone and asked his assistant to call Miriam Holt, Halden's HR vice president. Later, Miriam entered carrying a legal pad. "What exactly are we discussing?" Klein began. "Marcus had an inappropriate conversation yesterday with Elena Ruiz from Atlas Grid." Marcus opened his folder. Miriam looked at him. "Inappropriate how?" "That's what I'd like Thomas to specify," Marcus said. Klein's jaw tightened. Graham stepped in. "You disclosed compensation information to a direct competitor while standing in our offices. My compensation. That distinction may not protect you." Miriam stopped writing. "Yes, it does matter." Silence. She turned toward Graham. "Employees are not prohibited from discussing their own compensation." Graham's face changed, only slightly. Marcus saw it anyway. Klein folded his hands. "The larger issue is judgment." Marcus looked at him. "That seems to be the phrase we use whenever the documented reason becomes inconvenient." Miriam looked from Marcus to Klein. "What documented reason?" Nobody answered. Marcus reached into the folder and placed the incentive history on the table. Approved $31,500, the $21,000 executive reduction, the authorization ID. Then he looked directly at Graham. "I'd like the adjustment note reviewed as part of this meeting." Graham went completely still. Miriam Holt looked at the page Marcus had placed on the table. Then she looked at Graham. "What adjustment note?" Graham leaned forward, forearms on the polished wood. A management assessment attached to the year-end compensation review." "Who requested it?" "I did." Miriam's pen stopped. "And what did it assess?" Graham glanced at Marcus as if the answer belonged to him rather than the document. "Leadership readiness." Marcus stayed quiet. He had learned something during the Westbridge recovery. When a system started producing bad data, the worst thing an engineer could do was touch everything at once. Freeze the environment, preserve the logs. Let the failure show its own path. Miriam turned to Klein. "Thomas, did you review the note before approving the adjustment?" Klein's expression hardened. "I reviewed Graham's recommendation." "That wasn't my question." Graham shifted in his chair. Klein noticed. So did Marcus. "Yes," Klein said. "I read it." Miriam drew a line across her legal pad. "Then I need the document." Graham's answer came too fast. "It contains succession planning information. I'm the vice president of Human Resources. It includes executive deliberations, and we are discussing an employee compensation decision, apparently based on those deliberations." Klein leaned back. "Miriam, nobody discriminated against Marcus. We made a leadership judgment." Marcus finally spoke. "Based on what?" Klein turned toward him. You've heard the explanation. I heard you say yesterday that my responsibilities outside the building affect my availability. Dana told me there was a written assessment before my bonus was reduced. I'm asking what measurable performance failure justified taking $21,000 from an already approved payout. Graham exhaled. This is exactly the problem. Miriam looked at him. What problem? The way Marcus frames every management decision as something that requires courtroom-level justification. Marcus almost answered. Almost. Then Graham kept talking. He is technically strong. Nobody disputes that. But executive roles require flexibility. We cannot build succession plans around someone whose personal circumstances make that flexibility uncertain. The room became very still. Miriam's face did not change, but she placed her pen down. What personal circumstances? Graham realized it 1 second too late. He tried to correct. I mean, availability patterns. Which patterns? The September dinner. The October remote days. There have been other occasions. Marcus opened his folder. No, there haven't. Graham looked at him. Marcus pulled out his calendar printout. I checked last night. 2 approved departures related to my daughter's medical care. Supplier dinner I left at 7:18 after completing my presentation. 2 remote work days approved by my manager. No missed client milestones. No missed executive reviews. No missed deployment windows. Klein rubbed his thumb against the edge of the table. Marcus, nobody is punishing you for taking care of your daughter. Then remove her from the calculation. Silence. Miriam looked at Graham. Can you? Graham did not answer. That answer mattered more than anything he could have said. Miriam stood. This meeting is over. Klein frowned. It is not. Yes, it is. She picked up Marcus's incentive history. I am placing the bonus adjustment under HR review effective now. And no further changes to Marcus Reed's compensation, access, title, reporting line, performance file, or employment status without HR and legal review. Graham's face tightened. You don't have authority to freeze an executive compensation decision. I have authority to freeze an employment action while assessing compliance risk. Klein's voice dropped. You're escalating this unnecessarily. Miriam looked directly at him. Oh, you escalated it when you changed an approved payout using a written assessment tied to caregiving. Nobody spoke. Marcus felt no triumph. Mostly he felt tired. He had come to Halden wanting to build things. Better systems. Better teams. A life solid enough that Zoe would never understand how close money could sit to fear. 4 people were arguing about whether being her father had reduced his value. Miriam turned to him. Marcus, I want copies of the documents you have. Keep the originals. I will. And do not delete or alter anything. I won't. Graham gave a short laugh. Are we seriously treating this like an investigation? Miriam looked at him. Yes. That was the first clean answer anyone had given all morning. Marcus left at 9:14. His badge still opened the corridor door. At his office, his team was already working. 2 engineers argued over database replication. Someone had left half a cinnamon roll beside a keyboard. Westbridge monitoring graphs glowed across the wall display. Normal life. Marcus sat down and opened his email. There were 3 messages waiting, one from Miriam requesting records, one from Zoe's school reminding parents about Friday pickup. The third was from Elena Ruiz. Breakfast offer still stands. No pressure. Also, congratulations on Westbridge. I read the client release this morning. Marcus stared at the message. Then another notification appeared. This one came from Halden's internal recruiting system. Vice President, Systems Operations Status. Posting approved. Marcus clicked. The position Klein had spent 8 months telling him was being prepared for him had gone public at 8:52 that morning. 22 minutes after Klein called Marcus into the meeting. The minimum qualifications were almost a copy of Marcus's resume. The preferred qualification was new. Extensive executive travel availability, including short-notice overnight assignments. Marcus read that line twice. Then he picked up his phone and called Elena. She answered before the second ring. Marcus, is breakfast still available? Yes. He looked through the glass wall at the team he had built. At lunch. At 12:07, Marcus walked into a small Italian restaurant 3 blocks west of the river. Elena Ruiz was already there. No assistant, no recruiter, no stack of glossy materials. Just Elena, a legal pad, 2 glasses of water, and a basket of bread she'd had apparently been ignoring. James, she said. You sound surprised. I'm surprised you came this fast. Marcus took the chair across from her. I'm surprised, too. A server approached. Marcus ordered sparkling water and the soup special. Elena asked for coffee. She waited until the server left before speaking again. Before we talk numbers, I need to know something. Marcus nodded. Are you here because you want Atlas or because you're angry at Halden? The question irritated him, mostly because it was fair. I don't know yet. Good answer. I thought you wanted me. I do. I don't want the version of you that makes a career decision 48 hours after getting punched in the mouth. Marcus looked out the window. Pedestrians hurried through cold rain beneath black umbrellas. A delivery cyclist threaded between cars. Somewhere beyond the glass, Halden's tower rose over the river. I spent 7 years there. I know. I built most of the systems operations group. I know that too. Klein told me the VP job was mine if Westbridge worked. Elena folded her hands. Did he put that in writing? Marcus looked at her. No. That wasn't a criticism. It sounded like one. Marcus reached for his water. He had been sharper than he meant to be. Sorry. Elena nodded once and moved on. What changed this morning? Marcus hesitated. He could discuss his own compensation. He could discuss a publicly posted job. He could not take Halden's internal documents across the street and start narrating them to a rival CEO. A position, I had been told, was part of my progression went public. VP? Yes. And? The posting contains a travel requirement that wasn't there before. Elena watched him. Relevant to your daughter? I think so. You think or you know? That bothered him too. He looked down at the table. I know what it looks like. I don't know who wrote it or why. Keep that distinction. Marcus gave her a tired smile. You always this pleasant at lunch? No. I'm worse. The server brought soup and coffee. For several minutes, they talked about Westbridge instead, not confidential architecture. Elena knew better than to ask. She wanted to understand how Marcus ran people when a project was failing. Marcus described the first month. The integration vendor had blamed Halden. Halden's software team had blamed the client. The client had blamed everyone. Marcus stopped the 3-hour status calls and replaced them with 20-minute incident reviews built around one question. What failed since yesterday, and who owns the next action? People hated me for 2 weeks, he said. And after that? They started sleeping. Elena laughed. That's leadership. Marcus tore a piece of bread. Klein would disagree. No. Klein wants you to believe he disagrees. Marcus looked up. Elena sipped her coffee. A company doesn't put someone in charge of a failing 8-figure conversion if it doesn't trust his judgment. They may trust my work and not want me at the top. That happens. To people with kids, to people management finds useful where they are. Marcus considered that. It was an explanation he had not wanted to entertain. Moving him upward meant replacing him. Keeping him as systems director meant Marcus continued absorbing fires other executives did not want. Atlas needs someone to build a new delivery organization, Elena said. Not inherit one. Build it. How large? 42 employees this year. Probably 60 by next summer. Reporting to? Me? Title? Senior Vice President Infrastructure Delivery. Marcus stopped tearing the bread. That was not the role the recruiter had described 8 months ago. You changed it. I changed what we need. And the 63? Signing bonus. Guaranteed if you start by March 15th. Why 63? Elena smiled. Because when my recruiter asked what Halden's target incentive was, you told him 31.5. Marcus remembered the conversation. He had barely wanted it at the time. So you doubled it. Yes. That sounds theatrical. It got you to lunch. He laughed despite himself. Elena slid the legal pad toward him. She had written 5 numbers. Base salary, annual target incentive, signing bonus, equity grant, 6-month severance protection. Marcus read them slowly. The base was $42,000 above Halden. The target incentive was nearly twice his current one. The equity line mattered more. So did the severance protection. You prepared this before yesterday? The framework. Yes. Why? Because I've wanted you, since Westbridge went sideways and you fixed it without publicly blaming your own people. Marcus looked at the numbers again. The first instinct was relief. That frightened him. Relief could make any offer look like rescue. What are you not telling me? Elena leaned back. Here it is. What? The question I wanted you to ask. Atlas had won 2 major municipal contracts in the past 6 months. Marcus knew that from industry news. He also knew fast growth broke organizations. Elena tapped the legal pad. We have a scaling problem. Our sales team is outrunning delivery. Missed 2 upcoming implementations. We damaged the reputation that won them. So I walk into a fire. Yes. How bad? One program is 6 weeks behind. Client? Yes. Board? Yes. Any hidden staffing cuts? No. Any planned layoffs? No. Will I have authority to replace vendors within approved thresholds? Hire? Yes. Push back on sales? Elena smiled. It's the job. Marcus sat back. For the first time since Klein slid the revised acknowledgement toward him, Marcus could see a future that did not involve convincing Halden to value him correctly. That realization carried its own wound. His phone vibrated. Miriam Holt. He almost ignored it. Then he remembered the investigation. "Excuse me," he answered. "Miriam?" Her voice was controlled. "Are you somewhere you can speak privately?" Marcus glanced at Elena. "No." "Then listen." His hand tightened around the phone. "We reviewed the compensation workflow. Do not resign today." Marcus's eyes lifted. "Why?" "Because the adjustment to your bonus was not the first action tied to Graham's recommendation." Marcus said nothing. Miriam continued. "The VP posting was edited Monday morning." He looked at Elena across the table. "By Graham? I'm not discussing conclusions yet, but the travel requirement was added after your succession review." Marcus felt the restaurant narrow around him. Miriam lowered her voice. "And there is a second document." "What document?" "A succession slate from December." Marcus remembered December. Klein had shaken his hand after the Westbridge acceptance meeting. "You did what I needed you to do." "What does it say?" "You were listed as the recommended candidate for vice president." Marcus closed his eyes. "When did that change?" "That is what legal and I are determining." The line stayed quiet for a beat. Then Miriam said, "Marcus, someone removed your name 12 days later." The soup in front of him had gone untouched. Marcus kept the phone to his ear. 12 days after what?" Miriam answered without hesitation. "After Westbridge acceptance." That date sat cleanly in his memory. December 8. The client had signed the final deployment certificate at 4:16 p.m. Marcus still had the photo his team took afterward. 12 exhausted people around a conference table eating grocery store cake because nobody had remembered to order anything better. December 20 would have been 12 days later, 2 days before Halden closed for Christmas. "Who was put in my place?" "No one." Marcus frowned. "You said my name was removed." "It was." The succession line was left blank. "Why?" "That is part of the review." Marcus looked across the table at Elena. She had stopped drinking her coffee. She could not hear Miriam's side of the call, but she could read enough from Marcus's face to know this was no routine update. Miriam continued. "Legal has issued a preservation notice. Compensation records, succession documents, calendar entries, HR notes, executive messages relating to your bonus and promotion status are being retained." Marcus felt a different kind of pressure now, the kind created when a private wrong stopped being private. "Does Thomas know?" "Yes." "Graham?" "Yes." "And my manager?" "Not yet." "We are limiting distribution." Marcus glanced toward the restaurant entrance. "Am I expected back this afternoon?" "Yes, unless you want to take personal time." "No." He heard Elena shift in her chair. Miriam lowered her voice. "One more thing. Do not discuss the investigation with employees who may be witnesses." "Dana?" "She has already been interviewed." Marcus understood. "Thank you." When the call ended, he placed the phone face down. Elena waited. "Bad?" "Complicated. You don't owe me the details." "I know." Marcus looked at the legal pad between them. That line mattered. Elena wanted him. She also understood where her right to know stopped. Thomas Klein had spent the previous day behaving as if Marcus's boundaries were negotiable. "What happens if I say I need a week?" Marcus asked. "To decide. Yes, you take a week. And the March 15th start? Still works." "What if Halden counters?" Elena smiled, but there was no amusement in it. "I expect them to." "That confident? That predictable?" Marcus leaned back. "You think this is about money now?" "No. I think they'll try to make it about money because money is easier than admitting why they changed their mind." That sentence stayed with him after lunch. At 1:36, Marcus returned to Halden. The office looked exactly as it had that morning. Phones rang. Engineers argued. Someone had changed the monitoring dashboard from dark mode to light and triggered 3 complaints in Slack. Humanity could be cruel that way. Marcus sat at his desk and spent 20 minutes reviewing Westbridge incident reports. At 2:03, his director of network engineering, Ryan Bell, appeared at the doorway. "You busy?" "Yes." Ryan stepped inside anyway. "I heard HR is asking questions about leadership reviews." Marcus looked at him. "He told you." Ryan shrugged. "People talk." "That wasn't my question." Ryan closed the door. "I don't know." Marcus believed half of that. Ryan had joined Halden 2 years before Marcus. He was competent, ambitious, and good at knowing which executive had changed direction before the change became official. "What are they asking?" Ryan said. "Can't discuss it." Ryan watched him. "Is this about the VP role?" Marcus felt his attention sharpen. "Why would you ask that?" Ryan hesitated. "Too long." Marcus waited. Ryan rubbed the back of his neck. "Graham talked to me in December." The room seemed quiet. "About what?" "The VP position." Marcus did not move. "Then, before Christmas, what did he say?" Ryan pulled out the visitor chair and sat. "He asked whether I'd be interested if they opened the role externally." "Externally? Yeah, but you're internal. I know." Marcus stared at him. Ryan looked uncomfortable now. "I thought it was strange." "What else did he ask?" Ryan sighed. "He wanted to know how much travel I could handle. Nights, weekends, short notice stuff." Marcus felt the posting language return to him. Extensive executive travel availability. Ryan looked down. "My kids are in college. Melissa travels more than I do. It wasn't a problem." Marcus nodded once. Ian continued. "Then Graham asked something else." Marcus waited. "He asked whether your family situation had gotten more stable." The words sat between them. "Not childcare. Not availability. Family situation." Marcus felt heat move up the back of his neck. "What did you tell him?" "I told him I didn't know." "That wasn't true." Ryan looked up. "You knew Zoe had medical appointments." "I knew she'd been sick." "I didn't know details." "You knew I'd covered every deliverable." "Yes." "You knew Westbridge finished early." "Yes." Marcus stood and walked toward the window. 30 floors below, the river moved under low clouds. Behind him, Ryan spoke more quietly. "I should have told you." Marcus turned. "Yes." Ryan absorbed that without defending himself. "I thought he was planning options. I didn't think they were removing you, but when the job posted this morning..." Ryan looked at the floor. "I knew something was wrong." Marcus studied him. "Did Graham offer you the job?" "No." "Did he tell you to apply?" "No." "Would you?" Ryan looked back at him. "Not now." Marcus believed that one. A knock sounded at the door. Miriam Holt stood outside. She looked at Ryan first, then Marcus. "I need to speak with both of you." Ryan's face lost color. Miriam entered and closed the door. "I was on my way to find Mr. Bell." Marcus said nothing. Miriam opened her legal pad. "Ryan, I need you to repeat for me exactly what Graham Voss asked you in December." Ryan looked at Marcus. Marcus stepped away from the window. "Tell her." This time, Ryan did. And when he reached the question about whether Marcus's family situation had become more stable, Miriam stopped writing. She looked up. "Those were his words?" Ryan nodded. "Exactly." Miriam closed the legal pad. For the first time since the review began, she looked angry, not surprised. Angry. "Thank you. Do not discuss this with anyone else." Ryan left. Miriam stayed. Marcus sat again. "Is that enough?" To prove what they did, Miriam pulled out the chair Ryan had just vacated. "It proves Graham was considering your caregiving situation before the role was posted. It does not yet prove every decision flowed from that consideration." Marcus hated the precision. He respected it too. What would? A consistent record. She opened her folder. "We may have one." Marcus looked at her. Miriam placed a printed calendar on his desk. December 20. One executive meeting had been highlighted. Succession review. 4 p.m. attendees. Thomas Klein, Graham Voss, Miriam Holt, and one name Marcus had not expected. Evelyn Price, Chair, Halden Board Compensation Committee. Marcus looked up. "Miriam, you were in the room?" "Yes." "Then why don't you already know what happened?" Her expression tightened. "Because the succession slate I saw that afternoon still had your name on it." Marcus stared at the page. Miriam tapped the meeting time. Someone changed the official record after that meeting. Miriam did not touch the calendar again. Marcus kept staring at December 20. Who could change the official succession file? 4 people had access, she said. Thomas. Graham, Evelyn's governance administrator. Could you? Yes. Did you? No. Marcus looked at her. I had to ask. You should. She folded the calendar back into her folder. The succession system keeps revision metadata. Legal requested the audit history 20 minutes ago. So we'll know who changed it. We'll know which credentials were used. Marcus heard the distinction. Not necessarily who was sitting at the keyboard. Correct. His phone buzzed on the desk. A message from Zoe. Can Maya's mom pick me up Friday if you're busy? Marcus read it twice. He had forgotten Friday. 3 weeks earlier, he had promised Zoe they would leave early for Milwaukee to visit his mother. Nothing elaborate. Pizza Friday night. The Science Museum, Saturday morning. His mother had already bought Zoe a ridiculous purple sleeping bag with cartoon planets on it. He typed, "No, I'm picking you up. We're still going." He hesitated, then added, "I remember. Promise." Zoe replied with a thumbs up. Miriam watched without asking. Hey. Marcus put the phone down. "This is what they mean." "What?" "Availability." He pointed toward the phone. "I have a kid waiting for me. Sometimes she gets sick. Sometimes I leave work. Sometimes I choose her." Miriam remained quiet, and I spent months trying to prove those choices didn't affect my work. Marcus looked at the Westbridge charts glowing beyond his glass wall. Maybe I accepted the wrong premise. Miriam's expression softened. "What premise?" "That I had to prove fatherhood caused zero inconvenience." She nodded slowly. Before she could answer, her phone rang. She checked the screen. Legal. She stepped into the hall. Marcus returned to his laptop. For the next 17 minutes, he reviewed a capacity report because 37 people still worked for him, and none of them had caused this mess. A storage migration needed approval. A vendor wanted another extension. Someone had booked the same specialist for 2 overlapping deployments. Work did not care that his career had become an investigation. At 3:11, Miriam came back. She closed the door behind her. "We have the revision history." Marcus pushed his chair back. Who? The December succession file was edited at 6:43 p.m. on December 20. After the meeting, 2 hours and 19 minutes after, credits, Graham Voss. Marcus expected satisfaction. Instead, he felt almost nothing. A username was not an explanation. "What changed?" Miriam sat across from him. "Your name was deleted from the recommended successor field." "Anything else?" "Yes." She opened her notes. The field labeled readiness concern was changed from blank to mobility and availability considerations. Marcus stared at her. There it was. Not a misunderstanding. Not a vague recollection from Ryan. A change. Attached to his succession record, made after the committee meeting. "Was that language in the version you saw?" "No." "Did Evelyn Price approve it?" "We don't know yet." "Thomas?" "We don't know." Marcus got up and walked toward the window. Below him, headlights were beginning to appear along Wacker Drive. "What happens now?" Miriam took a second before answering. "Evelyn has called an emergency compensation committee meeting for tomorrow morning." Marcus turned. "Yes." "With Thomas?" "Yes." "Graham?" "Yes." "You?" "Yes." "And me?" "No." That irritated him. "They're discussing my career without me again. They're examining executive conduct. It's still my career." "I know." He heard no defensiveness in her voice. It's only fact. Marcus returned to the desk. "What happens to the bonus?" "It remains on hold. So $21,000 is still missing. For now." "What about the VP role?" "The posting has been suspended." Marcus looked at his screen. Less than 7 hours earlier, that posting had felt like a door being shut in his face. And now it was frozen. Still not opened. Just frozen. Miriam stood. "There is something else you should prepare for." "What?" "Thomas may offer to restore the bonus before tomorrow." Marcus frowned. "Why?" "Because restoring money can make an employment dispute look corrected, but it doesn't fix the succession record." "No," or Graham questioning Ryan about my family. "No," or the job posting. "No." Miriam picked up her folder. "Which is why I'm telling you not to confuse repayment with resolution." After she left, Marcus remained at his desk until 4:02. Then Thomas Klein appeared in the doorway. Alone, no jacket, no laptop, no Graham. "Can we talk?" Marcus looked past him into the corridor. "Here." Thomas stepped inside but left the door open. "I've authorized the remaining 21,000. Marcus said nothing. It should hit payroll this cycle. Still nothing. Thomas shifted his weight. "I think we let this get further than necessary." Marcus almost laughed. Instead, he asked, "Why was my name removed from the succession slate?" Thomas looked at him for a long moment. "You're reviewing that. You knew my full bonus was approved." "Yes, and you reduced it anyway." Thomas's face tightened. "I relied on a recommendation from my operations executive." "You read the recommendation?" "Yes." "You read the caregiving language?" Thomas did not answer. That silence closed one question. Marcus looked at him. "No. I'm not withdrawing anything because you restored money I had already earned. I didn't ask you to. You came to my office 4 hours before the board committee meets." Thomas glanced toward the open door. For once, he had no clean sentence ready. Marcus picked up Elena Ruiz's business card from beside his keyboard. "I have another question." Thomas saw the card. Marcus watched recognition settle into his face. "If Halden had promoted me in December, what would my compensation have been?" Thomas's eyes narrowed. "Why?" "Because I want to know what your decision actually cost me." For the first time, the restored bonus looked small. Thomas looked at the business card in Marcus's hand. Atlas made you an offer. That wasn't my question. Thomas stepped farther into the office and finally closed the door. Marcus noticed. Vice President base would have been $240, Thomas said. Target incentive 40%. Marcus did the math without reaching for a calculator. $6,000 at target. More than triple the bonus Thomas had cut. Equity, standard executive grant. How much? Depends on the year. Last year. Thomas looked irritated now. Marcus, what are we doing? Pricing the decision. The words came out calmer than Marcus felt. Thomas walked toward the glass wall and looked at the engineering floor outside. You think this company hasn't invested in you? I didn't ask that either. We gave you Westbridge. You gave me a failing project nobody wanted, and you turned it around. Yes, that matters. It mattered until the promotion decision. Thomas turned. You're reducing a complicated succession process to one factor. Marcus opened the folder again. Give me the other factors. Thomas said nothing. Performance? No. Client results? No. Team retention? Thomas hesitated. No. Financial performance? No. Then what? Thomas's face hardened. You want me to say Graham handled this badly? Fine. Graham handled it badly. Marcus stared at him. That's convenient. It's also true. You approved the bonus cut. I relied on his assessment. You read it. Thomas rubbed his forehead. Marcus had never seen him do that in 7 years. I should have challenged the language, but you didn't. No. And when I asked yesterday, you defended it. Thomas looked down. Yes, that answer mattered. Marcus had expected another explanation, another layer of corporate grammar wrapped around a simple act. And instead, Thomas had finally admitted participation. Not motive, not full responsibility. Participation. Marcus placed Elena's card back beside his keyboard. What happens to Graham? That's for the committee. What happens to the VP role? The search is suspended. That doesn't answer me. Thomas looked tired now. We need to determine whether the process was compromised. It was. We need the committee to determine that. Marcus leaned back. You know what I think happened? Thomas did not stop him. I think Graham decided a black single father with a child who sometimes needs him looked less convenient than an executive who could get on a plane whenever someone snapped their fingers. Thomas opened his mouth. Marcus kept going. Ink? You saw the same concern written in cleaner language and decided it sounded reasonable enough to use. That is not how I saw you. Then why didn't you stop it? Silence. Thomas looked through the glass at the floor below. When he answered, the confidence had gone out of his voice. Because I was worried about coverage. There it was. Not hatred. Not some hidden confession Marcus had been waiting to hear. A management fear. Ordinary enough to become dangerous. Westbridge exposed how dependent we are on you, Thomas continued. When you left that supplier dinner, Graham called me. The client had another escalation after you left. Ryan handled it. Yes. Correctly. Yes. So what was the problem? Thomas gave a small, frustrated gesture. The problem was that everyone still wanted you. Marcus stared at him. The sentence took several seconds to settle. Thomas continued. You built the recovery structure around yourself. No, I built it around leads, on paper. Ryan closed that escalation, after calling you. Marcus remembered. He had been sitting beside Zoe's hospital bed when Ryan called about a permissions issue. And Marcus had answered for 11 minutes. He had considered that responsible. Thomas had apparently considered it proof. We worried the VP role would put even more pressure on a dependency we hadn't solved. Marcus felt something uncomfortable move beneath his anger, because that part was not entirely false. He had trained his team. He had delegated. He had also made himself indispensable too often, not because Zoe existed, because Marcus had spent years proving he could carry more than anyone expected. It had worked, until the company used the weight against him. You had a legitimate operational problem, Marcus said. Thomas nodded. And instead of fixing succession under me, you treated my family as the risk. Thomas looked at him. Marcus continued. That's the difference. Thomas had no answer. At 4:37, he left Marcus's office. Marcus remained there for another 20 minutes. Then he called Ryan. Come in. Ryan appeared 5 minutes later. Marcus pointed toward the chair. I need an answer I may not like. Ryan sat. Okay. When Westbridge was at its worst, how often did the team wait for me when someone else could have decided? Ryan frowned. A lot. How much is a lot? Marcus, tell me, Ryan thought. First 2 months, probably half the major escalations. Marcus felt that. And after I changed the incident model, better. How much better? Maybe 20% still came back to you. Should they have? Some. Most? No. Marcus nodded. and watched him. Why are you asking? Because Thomas said they had a real coverage concern. Ryan laughed once. That doesn't justify what they did. I know. Then don't start doing their work for them. Marcus looked at him. Ryan leaned forward. You always do this. Do what? Find the 20% where the other person has a point. Then use it to interrogate yourself harder than you interrogate them. Marcus almost objected. Then stopped, Ryan continued. You made yourself too available. Sure, we all knew it. Half the time you answered calls because you didn't trust us to take the hit. That's not fair. It's exactly fair. Marcus felt the sting because it was close, and shrugged. You trained us, then jumped in before we could fail. Marcus looked through the glass at the people outside. He had thought staying reachable protected them. Maybe sometimes it protected him from the anxiety of letting go. That was harder to admit. Could you have run Westbridge without me by November? Ryan answered immediately. Yes. Marcus nodded. Then I failed at something. Ryan sighed. You delivered the project. I'm not talking about the project. For the first time that week, Marcus understood his mistake without confusing it with their wrongdoing. Halden had no right to turn caregiving into a leadership penalty. Marcus also had no reason to keep building teams that depended on his exhaustion. It could be true. The next morning, Compensation Committee met at 8. Marcus was not in the room. At 9:26, Graham Voss's access to executive systems was suspended pending investigation. At 9:41, Thomas sent no email. At 10:05, Miriam appeared at Marcus's door. Conference room. Marcus followed her. Evelyn Price was waiting inside. He had met the board committee chair twice before. 71, short silver hair, dark green glasses, retired manufacturing executive. She had a reputation for asking questions nobody enjoyed answering. Miriam closed the door. Evelyn did not offer small talk. We concluded the succession process was compromised. Marcus sat across from her. She continued. Mr. Voss changed the official succession record after the committee meeting without approval. He added availability language we did not authorize. He later used the same rationale to recommend a reduction in your incentive. And Thomas? Evelyn held his gaze. Mr. Klein approved the incentive reduction after reading that recommendation. Marcus waited. He has received a formal board reprimand and will undergo an executive performance review regarding his handling of the matter. Marcus felt no satisfaction. What about Graham? Administrative leave effective today. The investigation continues. Will he be fired? I won't promise an outcome before the investigation finishes. Fair. What happens to my bonus? The original amount has been restored. I know. The VP posting has been withdrawn. Marcus looked at her. Withdrawn? Yes. Not reopened? No. That surprised him. Evelyn folded her hands. We are not pretending the previous process can simply resume. So what happens? We rebuild it. Marcus almost smiled. That sounds expensive. It will be annoying first. He liked her a little for that. We are commissioning an external review of executive promotion criteria and incentive overrides. Not because every judgment was discriminatory. Because we cannot currently prove our controls are good enough to distinguish legitimate operational concerns from biased assumptions. Marcus considered the sentence. Specific, measured. No promise that one investigation would cure the company. What about me? Evelyn looked directly at him. You have 3 choices. Marcus waited. You can participate in a new VP selection after the review establishes corrected criteria. You can remain in your current role with a revised retention package. Or you can leave. Miriam glanced at Marcus. Evelyn continued. If you leave, the board will not characterize your departure as performance-related, and we will not enforce any provision intended to prevent you from taking another lawful job in the industry. Marcus thought of Elena's offer. $63,000 signing bonus, higher base, equity, a new team, a fire waiting to be put out. Then he thought of the 37 people outside this room. People he had trained. People who no longer needed him as much as he had once needed them to. When do you need my answer? Evelyn smiled faintly. That may be the first sensible question anyone has asked this week. She slid a 1-page letter across the table. Friday at 5. Marcus looked at the date. Tomorrow. He had promised Zoe Milwaukee. He looked back at Evelyn. No, Miriam's eyebrows rose. Evelyn remained still. Marcus pushed the letter back. You can have my answer Monday. The board asked for Friday. My daughter and I leave Friday afternoon. Evelyn studied him. Marcus felt the old instinct to explain. Medical history. Missed events. Promises. He stopped himself. I'll answer Monday. Evelyn looked at Miriam. Then back at Marcus. Monday at noon. Marcus nodded. Hey. When he returned to his office, he picked up Elena Ruiz's card. This time he did not call her because Halden had hurt him. He called because he was ready to ask what he wanted next. Elena did not answer with congratulations. She asked, "What do you want?" Marcus was standing beside the window in his office, watching two engineers pull apart a deployment problem at the whiteboard. I thought that was what the offer was for. The offer tells you what Atlas wants. Marcus smiled faintly. Fair. So what do you want? The question irritated him more than salary negotiations ever had. For 7 years, Halden had supplied the answer. Finish this project. Take this client. Fix this failure. Earn the next title. Marcus had become good at moving toward the next marker someone else placed in front of him. Now nobody was placing one. I want the authority to build a team that doesn't need me at midnight. Elena was quiet. Marcus continued. I want managers who can make decisions without waiting for permission because they're afraid one mistake will end their career. Keep going. I want the right to tell sales no. That one may cost me money. It probably will. Fine. Marcus looked through the glass at Ryan, who was arguing with a network engineer while drawing boxes around something on the board. And I don't want my daughter treated like a liability attached to my resume, Elena answered immediately. She won't be. Marcus closed his eyes for half a second. Don't promise what you can't control. Silence. Then Elena said, You're right. That mattered more than the promise. What I can promise is this, she continued. That Atlas has written caregiver protections. Travel expectations are defined by role. If those expectations change materially, we discuss the job again instead of quietly changing the person. Send me the policy. I will. And the executive travel data for the last year. She laughed. Anything else? Turnover for the leadership team I'd inherit. The laughter disappeared. Well, that's uglier. Good. I'll send it. Marcus ended the call 20 minutes later without accepting the job. At 3:40, Atlas emailed the documents. He read them at home that night while Zoe built a cardboard solar system on the kitchen floor. Atlas had problems, real ones. The infrastructure group had lost 4 senior managers in 18 months. An employee survey described leadership as permanently urgent. Another complained that sales commitments routinely arrived before delivery teams had reviewed them. Marcus read every page. Zoe looked up from Saturn. Are you working? Researching? That sounds like working. It sort of is, she frowned. Marcus shut the laptop. Okay, you can work. I said I wouldn't. You also look weird when you're trying not to. Marcus laughed. What does that mean? Your eyebrows do this. She pushed hers together dramatically. Marcus threw a couch pillow at her. Zoe ducked and laughed so hard Saturn rolled under the table. For 10 minutes they searched for it. The next morning Halden felt different. Graham's office was dark. His name remained on the door, but his assistant had been reassigned temporarily. The employees had heard enough to understand something serious had happened and not enough to know what. That combination produced whispers. Marcus avoided them. At 10:15, Ryan entered carrying 2 coffees. I brought a peace offering. You drink yours black. It's not for me. Marcus accepted the cup. Ryan sat. You leaving? I haven't decided. That means yes. No. It means I haven't decided. Ryan studied him. If you stay, I want the systems director job. Marcus nearly choked on the coffee. You've been waiting 3 days to ask me that? 7 years. Marcus stared at him. Ryan shrugged. You trained me. I also spend half my time telling you not to antagonize procurement. They're antagonizable. That isn't a word. It should be. Marcus smiled despite himself. Ryan became serious. If you leave, don't recommend some outside executive because you feel guilty. Marcus put the coffee down. I wouldn't. You might. Why? Because you think fairness means pretending relationships don't matter. Marcus leaned back, Ryan continued. You know my work. If I'm qualified, say it. If I'm not, say that too. Marcus considered him. 6 months earlier, he would have worried Ryan was not ready. Now he remembered the supplier escalation. Ryan had solved it. Marcus had answered the phone from Zoe's hospital room because Marcus needed to know it was being solved correctly. That was different. Build me a 90-day plan, Marcus said. Ryan blinked. For what? For running this group without me. You're leaving. I didn't say that. You basically did. Monday, 9 a.m., bring the plan. Ryan stood, suddenly grinning. At the door, he stopped. For what it's worth, I hope they offer you the VP role again. Marcus looked at him. Aye. So you can turn it down. Ryan left before Marcus could answer. That afternoon, Marcus drove to Milwaukee with Zoe. His phone stayed in the center console. They stopped for fries near Kenosha. Zoe complained that Marcus sang too loudly. Marcus told her this was impossible because singing volume was a hereditary strength. 7. They were inside his mother's narrow brick house. Loretta Reed opened the door before they knocked. She hugged Zoe first, then Marcus. "You look tired. Hello to you too." I said what I said. Dinner was baked chicken, greens, rice, and enough food for 10 people, despite there being 3. After Zoe went upstairs with the purple sleeping bag, Loretta brought Marcus tea. He told her about Halden. Not every document, not every meeting, enough. When he finished, she asked, "What does the other company want?" "Me." That wasn't the question. Marcus stared at her. Apparently, everyone had coordinated. He explained the Atlas role. Money, the authority, the problems. Loretta listened without interruption. Then she asked, "Which job lets you become somebody you haven't already been?" Marcus looked down at his tea. Halden offered restoration, Atlas offered construction. Neither guaranteed peace. Neither owed him certainty. "I don't know." His mother nodded. "Good. Why is everybody pleased when I don't know something? Because you're unbearable when you think you do." Marcus laughed. Upstairs, Zoe called for him. "Dad, what? Grandma bought the wrong batteries." Loretta frowned. "I bought batteries. You bought C batteries." Marcus stood. "What does she need?" "Ah!" Loretta waved him toward the stairs. "Go perform leadership." Monday morning arrived before Marcus felt ready for it. At 8:56, Ryan placed a 19-page 90-day plan on his desk. At 9:32, Elena emailed a revised Atlas offer, incorporating 3 changes Marcus had requested. At 10:47, Miriam called, "The board wants to meet before your noon deadline." Marcus looked at the clock. "What changed?" Miriam paused. "They've completed the first phase of Graham's investigation." Marcus closed Ryan's plan. "And it wasn't only your succession file." The room went quiet around him. Miriam continued. "They found 2 earlier promotion reviews with the same kind of availability notation." Marcus sat back. "Caregivers. Yes. Who?" "I can't give you names. Were they black?" Another pause. "One was." Marcus looked through the glass at Halden's floor. The problem had just grown beyond his bonus, his promotion, and his decision to stay or leave. By 11:15, the executive conference room on 31 looked less like a place for strategy and more like a room where people had finally stopped controlling the story. Evelyn Price sat at the head of the table. Miriam Holt sat to her left. Thomas Klein occupied the chair across from Marcus. M. Voss was absent. That absence said enough. Marcus placed Ryan's 90-day plan beside his folder but kept Atlas Grid's offer in his bag. Evelyn began without ceremony. "The board has completed an initial review of Mr. Voss's promotion and compensation decisions over the last 4 years." Marcus listened. "We found 3 cases, including yours, where caregiving or family availability appeared in leadership readiness documentation without a defined job requirement supporting the concern." Thomas stared at the table. Miriam added, "2 of those cases affected advancement. 1 affected incentive compensation." Marcus felt the anger return, but differently now. His own case had become part of a pattern. That made it worse. It also made it easier to stop treating the whole thing as a personal insult he somehow should have prevented. "What happens to those people?" Marcus asked. Evelyn answered. "They're being contacted individually. Their records will be reviewed by outside employment counsel and an independent compensation consultant. Where the company finds a decision was materially affected by unsupported criteria, we'll correct compensation and reopen advancement review." "No blanket settlement?" "Why not?" "Because the facts differ." Marcus nodded. That was the right answer, even if it was less satisfying than one giant act of corporate repentance. "What about Graham?" Evelyn folded her hands. "He resigned this morning after being informed the board intended to terminate his employment for unauthorized alteration of succession records and repeated use of non-standard criteria in promotion decisions." Thomas finally looked up. Marcus turned toward him. "And Thomas?" The question landed harder because Thomas was sitting there. Evelyn did not soften it. "The board found Mr. Klein did not create the altered succession record. We also found he approved your compensation reduction after reading the caregiving-related recommendation and failed to question whether that criterion belonged in the decision." Thomas's face remained still. "He has received a formal reprimand." Evelyn continued, "and the board has reduced his annual incentive by 25%. Marcus almost smiled at the symmetry. Almost. Then he remembered what the week had taught him about using money as a substitute for judgment. Is that supposed to make this even? No, Evelyn said. It's supposed to attach consequence to his decision. Good answer, she continued. For the next 12 months, executive compensation overrides and succession changes require dual approval from HR and the Compensation Committee. Leadership readiness criteria will also be rewritten around measurable role requirements. If travel is essential, the company must define how much, how often, and why before reviewing candidates. Miriam slid a document toward Marcus. Your original bonus is restored in full. Payroll confirmation is attached. Marcus looked at the amount, $31,500. A week ago, it had been the entire argument. Now it looked like one small square in a larger diagram. And my promotion? Evelyn's eyes stayed on him. The prior VP process is void, so I don't get the job. You don't automatically get it. Marcus appreciated that too. No ceremonial promotion to make the company look cleansed. Evelyn continued. We're creating a new process with defined criteria. You would be eligible. Would Ryan, if he meets the qualifications? Marcus looked at Miriam. Good. Thomas spoke for the first time. Marcus turned. Thomas's voice sounded different without a CEO's script behind it. I owe you an apology. Marcus waited. I treated a management concern as if it justified a compensation decision. I should have challenged Graham's recommendation. I didn't. Then when you questioned me, I defended it instead of examining it. Marcus watched him carefully. No phrase about intentions, no statement that anyone had misunderstood. Thomas kept going. I also allowed the fact that you were difficult to replace to become a reason not to advance you. That one caught Marcus. Thomas looked toward the glass wall. You solved problems too reliably. We kept giving you more of them. Then we worried about what would happen if you moved up. Marcus thought of Ryan's accusation. You trained us, then jumped in before we could fail. Thomas's failure did not erase Marcus's own. Marcus's mistake had been leadership. Thomas's had been using that leadership problem to justify a different standard tied to Marcus's family. They were not equal. I accept the apology, Marcus said. Thomas looked relieved. Marcus finished the sentence. That doesn't mean I've decided to stay. The relief disappeared. Evelyn's mouth moved slightly, almost a smile. I assumed as much. Marcus reached into his bag and pulled out 2 documents. Ryan's 90-day plan. Atlas Grid's offer. He placed both on the table. Then I want to tell you what I've decided. Thomas leaned forward. Marcus touched Ryan's plan first. I spent years making myself too necessary here. It's on me. Thomas started to speak. Marcus raised one hand. I'm not saying that excuse is what happened. Thomas stopped. I'm saying I finally understand why I kept answering calls nobody needed me to answer. I thought leadership meant being the person who could carry the most weight. He looked at Miriam. It doesn't. Then at Evelyn. It means building people who can carry it without you. His hand moved to the Atlas offer. I accepted Atlas Grid's offer this morning. Thomas went still. Miriam closed her eyes for half a second, as if she had expected it. Evelyn simply nodded. Marcus continued. I'll stay through a 4-week transition if Halden wants it. I'll document everything. I'll hand off Westbridge. I'll recommend Ryan Bell for interim systems director subject to whatever process you use. Thomas stared at the Atlas offer. They gave you the SVP role. Yes. Compensation? Marcus almost laughed. After everything, that was still the first instinct. Enough. Thomas looked away. Evelyn asked, why Atlas? Marcus had spent all weekend searching for the answer. Now it came easily. Because I don't want my next move to be a repaired version of the last promise. Nobody interrupted. I want to build something new. And I want to know whether I can lead without making exhaustion part of the job description. Evelyn sat back. That sounds like an answer. It was. 4 weeks later, Marcus packed his office into 2 cardboard boxes. No dramatic escort. No security badge thrown across a desk. No applause from the whole company. Most endings did not know they were endings. Ryan took the systems director role on an interim basis. Dana received formal protection as a cooperating witness in the compensation review. 2 former employees entered the reopened advancement process. Thomas remained CEO under a board monitoring plan he clearly disliked. Halden changed, not all at once. Not enough to erase what happened. Enough that the next person would find a different system waiting. And on Marcus's final Friday, he left at 3:47. Ryan followed him to the elevator. You're really leaving before 5? Marcus pressed the button. Apparently, I'm no longer executive material. Ryan laughed. The elevator opened. Before Marcus stepped inside, Ryan handed him a small paper bag. "What's this?" "Emergency supplies." Marcus opened it. "Yeah, batteries." Marcus stared at him. Ryan grinned. "For Milwaukee." Marcus laughed so loudly a woman from accounting looked over. Then the elevator doors closed. On the ground floor, Zoe was waiting beside the security desk with her backpack over one shoulder. She looked at the cardboard boxes. "That everything?" "Almost. Did you get fired?" "No." "Did you fire them?" "No." She frowned. "It would have been more interesting." Marcus laughed again. They walked toward the revolving doors. Outside, Chicago had finally cleared after 3 straight days of rain. Zoe reached for his hand. "So what happens now?" Marcus looked toward the street. Atlas started Monday. A new team, a new mess, a new chance to build differently. He squeezed her hand. "Now I learn how to leave work before the elevator has to remind me." Zoe rolled her eyes. "That doesn't make any sense." "It will." Across town, Atlas Grid's delivery dashboard already held 3 red programs, and one problem Elena had not mentioned at lunch. Marcus did not know that yet. For once, he was fine not knowing. He and Zoe stepped into the afternoon together.